Hi, welcome to Full Frontal. I'm Samantha B. Or should I say, welcome to hell.
Since the elementary school massacre in Uvalde, Texas, 13 days ago, there have been 33 mass shootings across America.
In the last month, shootings have taken place at churches, grocery stores, doctors' offices, and elementary schools.
In only 157 days this year, there have been at least 246 mass shootings, defined as 4 more people shot and or killed in a single incident.
And that says everything you need to know about America's gun problem, that killing a mere 3 people at a time isn't even a blip on the gun violence radar. This week, Congress heard from parents and a survivor of Uvalde, and their words were as powerful as they were shattering.
Somewhere out there, there's a mom listening to our testimony, thinking, I can't even imagine their pain, not knowing that our reality will one day be hers, unless we act now.
How are we supposed to keep living like this? According to the Gun Violence Archive, the U.S. hasn't had a single week without a mass shooting so far this year. It never stops. Even Steve Harvey takes the occasional week off, and he has like 100 jobs. How does Steve Harvey do it? Or should I say, how do Steve's Harvey do it? For years, we've known that we have a gun violence epidemic in this country, but the past few weeks have been almost unbearable. And while you might think all this would finally bring everyone together to do something, you'd be wrong. And honestly, kind of dumb. I mean, come on, this is America.
44% of Republicans nationwide indicate that they accept mass shootings as inevitable, as part of a, quote, free society.
That is the most disgusting thing I've ever heard. Human lives are not an acceptable cost for a hobby, unless your hobby is ritually sacrificing human lives, in which case, okay, I can at least follow the logic. I mean, that's the whole point. Sadly, it's not looking like things will get better anytime soon. In fact, in the short term, they're almost certainly going to get even worse.
Bracing for a Supreme Court ruling that could make it easier to carry a gun in the state of New York.
New York bans carrying a handgun openly in public. Residents can get a permit to carry a concealed weapon, but only if they can show some special need. Gun rights advocates sued, saying that violates the constitutional right to keep and bear arms.
You don't have to say when you're looking for a permit to speak on a street corner or whatever that, you know, your speech is particularly important. So why do you have to show, in this case, convince somebody that you're entitled to exercise your Second Amendment right?
Because guns kill people and words do not, you idiot. New Yorkers already live in constant fear of rising rent prices, rodent infestations, and getting on an empty subway car and realizing it's empty because someone turned it into a mobile toilet. And now everyone in New York City might have to worry that one of the 300 people crammed onto the next subway car is carrying a gun. The new hard-right majority of the Supreme Court is most likely going to overturn New York's concealed carry law, and New York officials are scrambling to figure out what that could mean for some of our most vulnerable places.
New York officials hoping the court allows exceptions for so-called sensitive places. That would allow the state legislature or the city council to pass laws preventing people from bringing weapons into businesses, schools, mass transit, even Times Square.
Can't we just say Times Square on New Year's Eve is a sensitive place?
Of course Times Square is a sensitive place. That's where New Yorkers go when they're lost and need to get in touch with their feelings. No one is more sensitive or comforting than the off-brand minions of 42nd Street. Their costumes didn't start off yellow, but they sure did end up that way. And it's not just New York that's at risk either. If the Supreme Court deems the current law unconstitutional, it could invalidate similar laws in other states across the country, like California, Massachusetts, and New Jersey. But let's get our priorities straight here. If there's one New Jersey law that needs to be invalidated, it's the one that prohibits people from pumping their own gas. I mean, please. I'm 37 years old. I can pump my own gas. In the worst case scenario, it could soon be easier for almost anyone to carry a gun in public for self-defense. You'd think we'd know this by now, but more guns do not make us safer. There's a direct correlation between weak gun laws and higher rates of gun deaths. But America's gun fetishists won't be satisfied with weakening just this one law. Gun rights activists are working overtime to fight all gun safety regulation, with some Republicans even objecting to common-sense red flag laws.
What they do in general terms is relatively simple. Police or a family member can ask a judge to order a temporary removal of weapons from someone who presents a danger to him or herself or others.
How the is anyone against a red flag law? It's so simple. It's basically the you'll shoot your eye out law, but with cops instead of Santa. If used correctly, red flag laws work. And even strong majorities of Republican voters are in favor of them. 19 states have some type of red flag law, including a couple of pretty conservative states. Just 3 weeks after the 2018 Parkland shooting, Florida's Republican legislature and Republican governor passed a gun reform package that included a red flag policy, a 3-day waiting period to buy most rifles, funding for mental health resources, and it raised the age minimum to purchase a gun to 21. I mean, sure, you can probably get a fake ID and McLovin yourself into an AR-15, but at least the law adds a point of friction that keeps guns away from many men under 21 who, science has determined, are objectively the worst people alive. Since 2018, Florida's law has been used at least 8,000 times to keep guns out of the hands of people who pose a risk. That means Florida's red flag law is working, which is surprising because Florida itself is usually seen as a red flag. Bipartisan talks in the Senate to encourage similar laws are supposedly making progress, but it's in the same slow, uncertain way that a pound of cheese makes progress through your digestive system. No one's sure if it'll get where it needs to go, and it's going to hurt like hell trying to get there. Unfortunately, many Republicans feel the same way about gun restrictions as they do about gun victims. They'd prefer to just let them die.
The Protecting Our Kids Act proposed by Democrats would raise age limits on assault rifles, ban high-capacity magazines, require safer gun storage, and work to prevent gun trafficking. Republicans say restrictions in Democrat-led cities have not worked, and neither will this bill.
How dare you? How dare you? You arrogant people. We've seen what your ideas do. They create more murder.
Oh, off, Louis Gohmert, you dumb asshole. First of all, no, they don't. Second, we shouldn't waste our time listening to the same person who just blamed mass shootings on a lack of prayers. Prayers don't work. I know, because if they did, Louis Gohmert would spend the rest of his life stepping on rakes. It's hard to be optimistic about the future when half of our elected officials won't even admit there's a gun problem. And it is excruciating to see the headlines about shootings day after day, but we cannot look away. The people who value guns more than lives want us to get exhausted, to just be relieved that it wasn't us or our kids who died this time, and to move on. They want us to accept mass shooting days as a routine nuisance, like rainy days that you factor into your daily life. They want us to forget the Sandy Hook kids who should be in high school now, to forget the Columbine kids who should be reaching middle age, and to forget all the chances our leaders have squandered to prevent the countless shootings that have happened since. As long as these headlines keep piling up, and as long as Republicans are content to let our children die as the cost of doing business, we have to keep pressing the issue. So expect to hear us talking again about guns far sooner than any of us want to. We'll be right back.